to Meet the Host, the show where we flip the script on the host. Today, we're going to get the most out of this host. We'll introduce her in a second. My name is Michael Rippe. I'm your host. You can find me on social media at Mike Rips. Follow the show at Meet the Host. Subscribe to us on YouTube and all social media platforms. We're bringing you new episodes every Monday. Because if it's Monday, it's Meet the Host. And today, in studio, live from Studio A, Meet the Host, we have who? Shay Holland.
Shay Holland.
And where can we find you on social media?
It's pretty simple. Shay Holland across social media or at the Facebook group Host in LA.
That's a lot of things. Very simple, very easy. Quick tip. Do it easy, make it simple. So, you've created one of the largest groups here in Los Angeles for hosts. That's a great thing. We're going to talk about that, but I want to hold off on that and start with this. What's your style of hosting?
I come from a news background, so definitely I like stuff live. I like it fast. I like it off the cuff. I don't like scripted stuff as much. So I would say that's it. Really authentic. If there's, the emotional side of it, but also somewhat inspirational. I like so kind of that would be my style.
Your style. And what do you host? I know we talked off camera, but now that we're on camera, what do you host?
I am right now in the process, the final legs of a design show for one of the major networks, which is pretty exciting because it's not necessarily my background, but it's also been always been my passion is design. And so I started with building houses for Habitat for Humanity, worked with some construction teams in third world countries, and ended up getting my contractor's license eventually. But for some reason, I was doing celebrity hosting, and so now rebranding and going for my passion, and it's working out great.
That's great, and continued success. Good luck with the new possible show. Very exciting.
Yeah, very exciting.
You moved away from celebrity hosting.
Yes.
Any specific reason?
It just wasn't something I was necessarily as passionate about, and there's only so many times you can, be on the red carpet before it starts to just become kind of routine. And I really love the challenge with design is it's always a new problem to solve. It's always a new place to figure out what you're going to do with it. And so I really like the challenge, I think.
I was going to say, I'm taking from that you like a continuous challenge.
I love everything to be different every day.
You said something interesting about being a celebrity host. There's only so many times you can be on the red carpet. So I ask you, how many times is that?
Well, for me, it's been a lot. And I was fortunate in that when I first came to LA it's been a long time now, oh my gosh, but I ended up at a job at the Hollywood Reporter. And so right away I was thrown into the whole entertainment, red carpet culture. And in fact, my first month at work, my boss came in and she said, I can't make this event tonight, you have to go. And, just keep an eye on Denzel Washington and Julia Roberts while you're there. And I was like, oh, okay, this is my life now. And so, it's a great life. It's a lot of fun. But like I said, for me, it just didn't strike me like deep down in that core of my passion the way that design does. Which
I really appreciate as being able to speak to many hosts. I find when you follow your passion, that's when you do your best work, and it really is the most authentic you.
So true. That is absolutely right.
And it is exciting for hosts to see the thrill of the red carpet those few times, but it is interesting to hear you say how, once you get used to it and it's not really your thing, you find that passion, you follow it, and you do good work.
Yeah, and especially after, you've been standing out on the red carpet, and it's so tight at some of these things, and you're getting squished and crushed by these big guys with their camera and everything. And after a while, it's just like, if you're black, your hair is all over the place if it's raining, So it's just, it looks glamorous, but part of it is just truly is the nuts and bolts of the job. And so you have to be ready for that if you do want to do celebrity hosting. It's not as glamorous as it looks.
And speaking of the nuts and bolts of the job, what would you say your favorite part about hosting is?
I would say definitely getting a chance to meet people and tell their stories. That's the part of me that's still, hooked to my news background. I love to tell other people's stories. I'm not as comfortable being on this side of the camera, being the one being interviewed. It's definitely in my DNA. I love to ask questions that nobody else has thought of. I love it when people look at you and you're like, nobody's ever asked me that before. And that might go back to that, liking a challenge, but that's the part of hosting that I love the most.
And what about the least favorite part?
Oh, the least favorite part, I would say sometimes things get very scripted, and that drives me crazy. It's definitely when I'm not at my best, even though I've done a ton of teleprompter work, obviously being in news as well. It's just not where I feel like my best self comes out.
So I've gotten this from other episodes too, but it does sound like you appreciate authenticity and sort of going with the flow and being more real.
I think that's definitely when you get your best story, is when you're just willing to be authentic, be in the moment. And yes, it's more risky because you never know what might come out. I have to admit, I've occasionally let out a swear word or something in the middle of an interview when you weren't supposed to. But that's when you definitely get the best stuff. And I think that's what people can relate to. That's what draws people in. They're like, oh, wow, that's just like what I'm going through.
So I should turn the teleprompter off.
I know. I've cleared up my foul mouth from my family.
There is no teleprompter here at Meet
Turn
the
the
Host.
teleprompter off too.
You have had an interesting run here where you used to do TV news, crime reporting, and I like to ask my guests, what was the hardest guest, or maybe for your scenario would be, what's the hardest story you've ever had?
Let's see. Well, if you want to go back to the news days, I would say the hardest story I was covering was I was chasing a serial killer, except the police didn't want to reveal he was a serial killer yet because it could create panic in the neighborhood. They're trying to get more evidence, find out if there's other suspects involved. Finally, he's arrested, brought to trial, and I just sit there and watch him every day. I'm like, because he won't talk to me, won't look at me.
But he knew who
he knew
you
who
were.
I was because I'd been on his tail for so long.
Is that scary? A serial killer knowing who you are, chasing him?
I would say, I'm a military brat, so I'm probably a little bit like, it's back to the challenge. So, I look at some of the things I did, I'm like, what was I thinking? But no, I don't know. Those kind of things don't really faze me too much, which
wow.
I can't explain it, okay?
I think there's some people that are going to watch this and be like, what? She
right after the earthquake, I went to Haiti as part of a team, and it's just, I don't know, the more dangerous it is, it's almost where I kind of thrive, to be honest with you. I'm a little bit of a daredevil that way.
Thrill seeker.
And I think people look at me and they don't see that, but that's truly my personality. And so with this guy, the serial killer, finally one day he looked at me, and because I would stay in there even on breaks, because sometimes it's on the break when you can get your best moment, actually, when everybody else has left. And sure enough, he turns around, and I said, do you have anything to say to me? And he said, yeah. He said, make sure somebody looks after my dogs.
Did you look after the dogs?
No, I'm like, that's all he had. And I never reported it because I'm like, here he's killed at least 10 women. And this is what he says. And I've never forgotten it, just because it was such a poignant moment to me of, there is something like inhumane in some people.
Well,
but
this is a challenge. That is fascinating.
Too.
This is fascinating for our guests. Anyone watching this, if you want to figure out who the serial killer is and alert Meet the Host, that would be interesting too. That would be. Right. I'm not going to put you on the spot to tell us.
And we do have a lot of newscasters and sportscasters in our group, and so they know what I'm talking about. It's an interesting life. You see all kinds of stuff. And
on the flip side of the all kinds of stuff, serial killer is tough to beat as far as a hardest story, hardest guest. What's your easiest guest ever been like?
Easiest guest, I would say, it's kind of a conglomeration of people that really want to tell their story, and people that don't have something to hide, and people that are passionate about something. It's funny because oftentimes it's the people in our own industry and filmmakers and people in the entertainment industry that are the best to interview because they're so passionate about their art and their creativity.
Well, and I sense the passion just from you about the crime reporting and the serial killer story. That's unbelievable to me. I'm still... Don't be sorry.
I'm hosting, not news.
Great. Speaking of segments, do you prefer shorter or longer segments?
I definitely am like run and gun, so shorter and fast, but get to the point. And I definitely don't like to necessarily dance around something, so that kind of directness sometimes you kind of sometimes get the best because it's like you don't have to put on a pretty face for things. It's like, here it is. This is the reality.
Okay, well, so you like the shorter segments. That's good.
Short and sweet, yeah.
Now, those segments when they're short, who's developing the questions? Do you develop all your questions yourself, or are we talking about possibly getting questions fed to you, or what's your scenario?
My preference is definitely to develop the questions myself, and not even in advance necessarily. I really feel like the best hosts are ones that listen and take it from what the other person said. And so the interview might go a whole different direction than what you expected, but those are really, I think, the best ones.
Well, let's take this a different direction
then,
because I was listening to you. Earlier in our conversation, you talked about going to Haiti. And one of the things that we like to do here at Meet the Host is that after the conversation, we'd like you to sign the cue card and then possibly collaborate on a way to raise some money to a charity of your choosing. Whether it's $1, $2, please donate to a good cause, whatever charity that you support. And so that's the question I want to ask you next. what charity, if you could, would you spearhead or be in charge of?
I would say I would partner probably with some of the orphanages in Haiti, which is some of the work I was doing. I went down there as part of a construction team as well. And just seeing the kids and getting a chance to do something that makes a difference in people's life that's so tangible is just an amazing experience. So probably something like that. I would love to be able to go back for about a third time as well.
Good. Well, then let's make sure that after this, we're going to have you sign this. We're going to collaborate on figuring our way out that you can donate to that cause for the citizens of Haiti and the children and everything that you're doing with Haiti, whether it's $1, $2. We want to help out and make that better. Yeah, so that's good. Back to our program, I want to ask you, I know you've done the TV news, the crime reporting news. Now you're going to possibly be doing the design show. What is it about this new pitch and idea that really, other than just that it's challenging, really has got you so excited?
You know, I was telling your producer off show that my passion has actually always been design ever since I was a little kid, and my family lived in military housing, and I was constantly figuring out, okay, we got this sterile place, how can I make it prettier? And I swear I'd make curtains out of paper towels or something. But I never looked at it as something for hosting for some reason, even though it's something I absolutely can just get engrossed in, 12 hours a day if you would let me. And then this opportunity came up for this network show, and I happened to see it, and something about my construction background as well was appealing to them, and it just, so it's fairly new. It was about a 2-month interview process, audition process, background checks, all that kind of thing. And so I'm really completely rebelling and going, I wish I would have thought of this sooner to take, just my passion and the thing I love and allow that to be my hosting.
Is this your dream hosting role? And if it's not this, what would be your dream hosting role?
This is really close to my dream hosting role. And I did get a chance to be a candidate on probably something that would be my dream hosting gig, which was Extreme Makeover Home Edition a few years ago. And then the writer strike hit and some other things happened at the time I was up for that show. And then that was when I started to move into celebrity hosting instead. And so something that combines definitely my design skills, but that also makes an impact in people's life. I don't like design just to say, oh, here's another mansion and here's all the beautiful stuff in it. I love it to have a meaning or an impact. And so something that combines all of that.
I like that. Well, good luck with that.
Thank you.
We're excited to hear about this show and you being on it and really thriving with your passion. Final couple questions here, and then we'll get you out of here. Who is your favorite host?
Oh, well, if it's on the design side, there's so many of them. And so I'll go with the one that I really like his style, which is Carson Daly on The Voice, specifically on The Voice. And the reason is that he's almost like a non-factor in that he's so getting the story, and he's not trying to be glamorous. And my coach, Marky Costello, said something that I love, and she said, nobody's interested in your pink lipstick. And what she was alluding to is the fact that as a host, it's your job to really allow the other person to shine and to let their story be told. And I feel like Carson Daly really does that on that show, especially in the early days of that show.
That's great. I couldn't agree with you more with what you're saying about letting the others shine and putting the spotlight on the guest and making it about them and not yourself. And so that's great advice and tips, which will lead me into my follow-up question. But I want to say, no one has ever said Carson Daly, so that's awesome. That's very unique. I love hearing what people say. Carson Daly on The Voice, great advice. So if you're a new host, possibly watch him and see what he's doing and get tips from them.
Yeah, absolutely.
And speaking of tips and advice, I want to touch before we let you out of here about the Host in LA group and kind of tips and advice you can just give generally for hosts to be better and to be able to get to a level where they can possibly be on national TV.
Yeah, well, thanks. And I want to thank Jenna, who started that group several years ago, Hosts in LA, and now we've grown to well over 2,000. The
largest group on the West Coast, right?
I think probably in the country, but somebody maybe can do the research for us. I was doing a little bit of it and didn't find anything exclusively for hosts that's larger. There she is, right there. Oh, hi, Jenna.
Live TV.
But I would say, especially for those who are just getting started, to do something even like this platform like this, where you're creating your own content. That's really the most critical factor, is just figuring out what it is that you're passionate about, how can you brand yourself, and just start putting a blog up there. These things don't cost any money. You can do a YouTube video on your phone these days. And so just really getting out there and practicing, interviewing people over and over and over again. And just really, I've heard it said before, try to do something every day that leads you towards what you want. And I really try to live by that myself. And so whether that's getting your website, up and running and just editing it one day or whatever, just doing a little bit every single day.
It's incredible stuff. Practice, practice, practice. You can never practice enough.
No, you can't.
All right. This has been fun. Thank you so much for stopping by Meet the Host. Let's tell everyone that's watching where they can find you specifically.
I'm pretty easy to find at Shay Holland, S-H-A-Y, and then Holland like the country. And no, I'm not Dutch, but
but you are Shay Holland.
But I am Shay Holland.
And you are able to find her all over at Shay Holland. Now, if you want to be a part of the largest group of on-camera personalities on the West Coast, you can do that on Facebook. How?
www.facebook.com/groups/Host in LA, or just put Host in LA in the search and we'll come up.
And that will get you on your way to learning from not only Shay, but a bunch of hosts on the things that you can do to better yourself, get opportunities, connections, but make sure you're taking the time to be good before you submit. With that, from the studios here in Los Angeles, the Meet the Host studio, please subscribe to us on YouTube, like us on Facebook and Twitter, maybe even on Instagram if you really want. And follow us again at Meet the Host. My name is Michael Rippe. I am your host of Meet the Host. You can follow me on social media at Mike Rips. We will see you next Monday for another episode of Meet the Host.